Kamau Kujichagulia, and this is On the Case with Kamau Kujichagulia. Where each week we talk with a person of much interest about what's going on in Trenton or in New Jersey or the East Coast or the nation or the world. So this week we have such a wonderful woman. My daughter. I think I have to give you that. She's my daughter. The mother of my first grandson. So Dasheeda Dawson, the weed head, right out of New York City. She's gonna be our guest this evening. So we're gonna get with her in a minute. But before we do that, I wanna. Where's Michael? Michael Harmon. There he is. Hey, son, how are you?
What's up? How are you?
Very good, very good. You got your son in town, right?
Yes, Messiah is in town.
Very good.
He's with my mother right now.
But
he's in town. I got him from Los Angeles.
Very good, very good. I know that makes you happy. Okay.
Extremely happy. Extremely happy.
Hello,
you
Dana.
Don't understand. That boy is.
Huh?
That boy is it, man. That boy is it, man.
Very good, very good. Hello, Dana. Dana, Dr. Harmon, I call her, will be in town sometime this week. So we'll be able to hold her, give her some hugs and kisses.
Yeah, she said next week.
Yeah. So, I just heard not too long ago that Cornel West is running for president. Okay. So that should be of high interest. At least the conversation, the rhetoric will be raised to a totally different level.
Right.
Well, man, I understand Cornell's 70, but at least you have some young people or relatively young people talking instead of somebody like Joe Biden who keeps slurring his words and everything, falling on his head and
falling off of bikes.
Hey, what's wrong with him? I know what's wrong with him. He old shit. That's the only thing wrong with Biden. Shit. He should be home with his grands or great grandchildren. So Cornel West is he will bring up the conversation about reparations. He should bring up the conversation about the white supremacy. Man, that's getting precarious too.
Man,
this this Ukraine thing is blowing up. Blowing up in all their faces.
Yes, it is.
I understand today that England and France want to give Ukraine cruise missiles. Cruise missiles. I mean, that's how bad the war is going for Ukraine, that they're giving them these cruise missiles can reach Moscow though. People are sending missiles hitting Moscow and interior Russia, and Putin
steal those cruise missiles and be hitting them. Yeah, we're frozen. Are you there? I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure if people can, see me or not, but we have a very good guest this week, and she is my former sister-in-law, the son to my first nephew, my beautiful nephew Jordan. She is a cannabis connoisseur out of New York City, the founding director of Cannabis NYC, and of the NYC Department of Small Businesses. She is a CEO and best-selling author of the Weedhead Workbook series. Her name is none other than Miss Dasheeda Dawson. Miss Dasheeda Dawson.
Hey, not you calling me your ex-sister-in-law.
I said
That
former. I said former sister-in-law.
we
You know,
we still related. You still my brother,
you
okay?
still my sister. You still my sister. You still my sister. But how you doing today?
It has been a busy day, but I'm so thrilled to finally join y'all on the case. A lot of what you talk about in your previous episodes, there's always a connection to cannabis and the work that I'm doing. So I'm excited to finally share that with y'all a little bit.
Okay. Well, for those that don't know, tell us a little about Miss Dasheeda Dawson, or Dash Diva, or the
Dash Diva,
Weedhead.
the weed head. So I'm Brooklyn born, as you know. I'm from East New York, but I'm Jersey educated. That's how we met, actually, because I've spent most of my adult life in Jersey, being educated by Princeton, and in my undergraduate years, and which is where I met your brother. And then in my graduate years, doing my MBA at Rutgers. Shout out to the Scarlet Knights. Hayes Temple, my sister. Thank you. But no, I kind of followed a pretty typical career path out of MBA. I just, I went the senior executive route. I've worked for a lot of big companies. And I think around the time that my mom passed away, I started really coming out the cannabis closet. I had been using it by her recommendation to deal with a lot of autoimmune issues that was unexpected flare-ups and the like. And it was actually helping me while I was in Minnesota and dealing with extreme weather. And it wasn't until she passed away that I actually felt like, you know what, if I only have X amount of time on this earth, I'm definitely not going to do it in pain. I'm not going to do it in hiding. And I kind of came out the closet as the weed head, and joined the industry on the West Coast, and quickly got navigated with my business experience in the industry. And then it translated into eventually the government coming to call me to do work for them as a contractor. And then when COVID hit, my book tour was canceled. And sometimes you're like, look at God, because as soon as that happened, Portland called and asked if I could run their cannabis industry officially for the government. And so that was my first government job.
Okay. So you were the head of cannabis in Portland?
Yes.
And now you're the head of cannabis in New York.
Yes, I am. It's a full circle moment. I came home to make sure that New York City does its right. And let's get into why. But I came home full circle. It was really hard for me initially to be out West working predominantly with white men in the industry who are making millions and millions of dollars, and then to come back home and still seeing young brothers primarily, and some sisters getting locked up, getting harassed, civil liberties being taken away for a cannabis prohibition. So I did a lot of work as an advocate in New Jersey with Public Question 1, as well as in New York. And I'm thrilled just to be able, I feel blessed to be able to like actually see it through.
Okay. And you had mentioned Mama Dawson, rest in peace. Beautiful woman, very beautiful woman. What else has she taught you?
Well, I mean, besides just how to be fabulous and unapologetically Black girl magic, I mean, my mother was, everything, and then some. As you know, part of us being characters, all of my sisters, really has a lot to do with her, and us being a tribe. And so, if anything, she taught us the value of the tribe. I am a product of the tribe, and really being able to take care of the tribe that's close knit, but also extended family like yourself, and just making sure that we are centering community. That was something that she always did. She was an activist, always on the ground, part of Acorn. I feel like I grew up with it in my bottle. Like if we're going to take a stance, we're going to do so educated and powerful. And those are the things that she taught me. And I also will add spiritual. She was a Yoruba priestess, and now is an ancestor. And I actually feel much closer to my mother in spiritual realm than in person. And we were close in life, right? But I actually feel more protected since she transitioned.
Okay, and she's definitely built that tribe, and you guys are definitely close, you and your sisters. I love all y'all. ISIS.
We love you too.
Just brought a new baby into the tribe. I don't know if I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, no, we are thrilled. We have a new prince, and actually it's interesting, he's a prince but his name is King. So King Justice George Dawson was born on Sunday, and we are thrilled to have KJ with us. He's a tri baby, and already running the house or the building, and yeah, no, he looks like his cousins, all of them, including Jordan, and he's hungry like his cousins as well. But I'm excited to bring him down to y'all to kind of get a chance to visit, and I know she's really thrilled, and we're happy, just that she made it through safely, and he's a healthy, beautiful baby.
Okay, Dad, are you back with us?
I am here. Looks like power went out on the whole block.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Temple was telling us she's got the tea in the comments.
Huh.
Yeah. I didn't know Isis was having a little baby. She already had him.
She had him, yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, Ice definitely wasn't, putting it on Front Street. She kind of popped out of nowhere for a lot of people, not us, but I don't know if y'all remember Ice's dad, Pop Up Kenny, but he passed away in December unexpectedly. And I think having lost both her parents before 30, it was a lot initially, and just coming to grips with bringing life into the world. But I'm officially Auntie Grandma, so if you hear me calling myself that is why. Ice is like my first child, and I love her, and I want to make sure that she knows she's supported by the village. But we can't wait to meet you, Pop as well. He already, talking and moving and trying to flip over, and he's 3 days old. We're trying to, with all these advanced kids.
I was telling you, I'm trying to get my son Messiah, who's in town from Los Angeles, trying to get him to New York to meet you, hang out with you and Jordan, and if KJ's around, KJ also.
Yes, of course. So we'd love to hang out with Messiah. He looks like such a cool kid. I feel like we have so much fun.
That's good. Now you call yourself the weed head, right?
I do.
Why? I don't know if y'all went through this or not, but
I could tell you a little bit more why. So
sure.
We went through a little bit of how I winded up in the cannabis industry. So I jokingly say I went from Target to THC. Y'all know I worked for Target, and a lot of the things we got in Target, I am responsible for. Natural hair products, a plus size line, even the nursing pads and some of the breast pumps are the things that I worked on there. So I appreciate what I learned there. But basically, I used all those skills from my business experience, and I moved it into the industry. And when I first got into the industry, I wanted to come out as a cannabis patient. And so I thought, why not brand myself the weed head? Weed head is something that often people have with a negative connotation, that you don't get nothing done, you're lazy. And I am the exact opposite of that. I know y'all can attest to it. I happen to be one
Lord
of
knows that's the truth.
Yes.
I'm busy. I'm always doing something. And so for me to come out to say, hey, I use cannabis all day long of various forms and various delivery mechanisms. But I am very productive, and I'm a different type of weed head. That was the goal, to rebrand it and have a conversation starter. When people say it, I got a lot of, some scrunched up faces. I got a little laughs. But at the end of the day, it gave me an opportunity to say, this is what the weed head means to me. And I used to say, hey, I'm the weed head because I'm about to get to the head of the weed industry. And I mean, I said that almost 8 years ago, and what predictability I have forecasting my own life, but it's intentionality and strategy. And now I am, in fact, the head of the weed industry for the biggest city in the country as it pertains to cannabis. So that isn't unintentional. That isn't, yes, I took what the universe provided, but I was very much focused on becoming one of the head leaders of this new industry.
Okay.
Well, now, when you say you're the head of the weed industry in the biggest city of the country, what do you mean by that? Who are you?
I mean that I was appointed by Mayor Eric Adams in October 2022 to oversee the legal cannabis industry development for New York City. Officially, I'm the founding director of Cannabis NYC. Unofficially, they call me the Cannabis Czar for NYC.
God damn.
That's my nephew's mother right there.
Yeah, hilarious.
That's good. So, in that capacity, what do you do?
Whew, what don't I do? To be honest, I'm leaning in on every single thing that I have learned throughout the years. Let's start with the fact that I am a molecular biologist, so I have a strong science background, and a lot of cannabis that is lost in all the prohibition is the science. THC and CBD, these are just molecules. And so I come in with that competency and I set the record straight very quickly, debunking a lot of myths. But I'm also a Black girl that grew up in one of the communities disproportionately impacted by criminalization. There are 8 neighborhoods in New York City that represented more than 80% of the prison population through the 70s and through all the way to the 90s, the height of the war on drugs. New York arrested more people than any other state in the country, and New York City was the arrest capital of the state, and mostly Black and brown people were arrested. More than 58% were Black men and more than 37 Hispanic men. And so it's like, okay, we have this tool of clear systemic racism that was used against our communities. So my job also is to make sure that we're holding the line on the law in New York. New York is the first state to have the government admit it was wrong, admit that it had poor policies and that they were biased in their enforcement. And so the government now has accountability to fix it. And what we're trying to demonstrate with this law and with the work that I do in the city is that if we are intentional in that fixing or in that narrative and fixing it and an equitable outcome, we will eventually, improve these communities that were divested from, improve the lives of the individuals that were most harmed. It's an experiment, real talk, because when we talk about equity in America, we've never seen social equity, economic equity, environmental. We've never seen it in America because the Constitution is on the basis of and the blood of a slavery framework. And so as long as we consider that we are flawed in the way we've ever approached equality or, reform, it opens up an opportunity for us to be innovative. And so my job is to come up with innovative programs to help make the plug legit, get people who have been previously in the industry when it was illegal, transition them in, as opposed to that income being lost for those communities and that culture being co-opted. We have to figure out how to uplift it and celebrate it. And the government needs to do that because it's accountable. And I took a government job to make sure that it got done.
Okay. Now, are you saying that people who were street dealers in marijuana are now going to be in business in New York City, in the legal part of it?
Absolutely, but not just street dealers. The people, most of 90% of the arrests are possession, right? So if you happen to have a dime bag on you, you're going to jail. And so we're talking about people who were impacted by the criminalization aspect. There was even a stop and frisk period. And once you emptied your pockets and showed cannabis, now it was another law that was being misused that kind of took things further. So we're talking about everyone in the ecosystem. Now, preferably, right, you want to have people who already know the product, already know the industry, the plug knows the distribution of who's consuming, and you want that expertise in the space. And so we're thinking about it in that way too. But ultimately, we're looking at anybody that has previously been arrested. And the program in New York has started. Like the first place I was able to buy from was a Black-owned dispensary where a Black man had been put in jail for cannabis, got out of jail, overcame that, became a successful entrepreneur, raised his son, got married, and basically his whole family got to open that dispensary. That type of programming is not heard of across the country. And so in this way, New York is demonstrating a different approach to an equitable rollout for cannabis.
It's pretty much like that in New Jersey too, isn't it?
Okay, so I give New Jersey its props in that the Regulatory Commission absolutely has laid out some foundation for people who have past harms to get in. But the law, so there's a statutory and there's regulatory. This regulatory can be changed every time a new leader comes in or gets appointed. Statutory has to be changed through the whole law process. In New York, it's by law we have to do it. In New Jersey, it's only by regulations. The law itself didn't even include the word equity. policy. We had a lot of Democratic leaders. I'm not gonna lie, like I was giving them the business because they were trying to call it the most equitable bill in the country, but it didn't even have the word. It didn't acknowledge the history. It didn't actually take government accountability. And so to me, that's still skirting the issue, because at the end of the day, we didn't make these laws. I'm helping to fix it, but it was imposed on us. And so the government has to take accountability. That wasn't done in A21, S21, the bill that passed in New Jersey, or the bill that helped get this up and running. But the regulatory office is one of the most diverse. It's the first Black woman to be a chair of a regulatory office. Shout out to Diana Waynu. It has more minorities on the board than any other state. And so you can tell in the way they're regulating that they have the same philosophy. But if it becomes a Becky, a Beckyana, or a Karen, or a Brad or a Chad, we don't know if that's still going to be the priority, because it's not required by law, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you were an author also, right?
I am.
Tell us about your book.
Well, you all know I homeschooled Jordan, and with the help of my mom initially. And then when she passed, I had to do it by myself. But one thing I really loved about the whole process is like the workbooks and, getting to know it. And so every time I would go out and speak, I was at Black Enterprise Entrepreneur Summit, people were like, well, do you have a book? Because I'm talking so much about it. And rather than writing just a book about like a textbook, I chose to do a workbook, because I really feel like, especially people of color and young people, everybody always thinks I need to open a dispensary. We only know the buying and the selling. And I really wanted to break down from the rooter to the tutor, as my grandmother used to say, the whole industry, even if it's just a little bit of the tip of the iceberg. And there's a lot of questions I think I have over 100 questions in the book, that after each chapter, it asks people to think about, like, how does this apply to what your skill set is? How do you take your credentials and apply it to the industry? Because we're going to have way more, people using their credentials, whether you're a plumber, accountant, a lawyer, than we are going to have licenses. We need the licenses, but we need everything else too for the industry to be great. And so that's what the workbook is about. And I was thrilled. It was a 3-time bestseller for Amazon in business entrepreneurship and a few other categories that I was just surprised. But the industry is growing, and I'm working on the 4th edition now.
What's the name of the book?
How to Succeed in the Cannabis Industry. I get right to the point.
Okay. Now you're nationalized, right? You've been all over the country talking about and institution regulations and laws. I mean, from Arizona, Oregon,
Los Angeles.
Yes, I've definitely come out to see you. Thank you, Mike, for really just being a support while I was on my early part of the journey. But now, Pop, I'm international. I went to Austria to speak at a United Nations conference or commission on narcotic drugs. I got to meet with the Ghanaian delegation, and meeting with the ministers there. What I realized is in Ghana and across the continent, they are trying to figure this out as well. And so for me, not for nothing, I'm happy to do this for America and demonstrate as much as possible. But America's policies actually disenfranchise continents of color, countries of color.
Mm-hmm.
And we owe a big, accountability to fix what we broke over there too. A large part of African countries' policies are all based on the fact that the United States would not do any trade if you were doing anything with this controlled substance. And in 1970, Nixon made it like, hey, we making a war on drugs, and if y'all not part of this war with us, guess what? You can't do business with us. And so a lot of their policies are insane, and they're finally realizing there's science and medicine behind it, and that they themselves have also did a disservice to communities through the illegalities. And so they're trying to figure out how to do what New York's done, but on a much larger scale. So, y'all might have to find me in Ghana. I might be in Accra,
I recently read on Facebook, social media, of course, that marijuana became legal in Ghana.
It did, and that's what I mean by like this international a bill that they've been working on for 3 years that I advised on here or there. It did become legal. What I would say, it's not quite what we consider marijuana. It is marijuana to them, but it's mostly a very low THC, more like hemp. But it's a step in the right direction. You know what I mean? It's what we need, and they're talking about it in the right way. Cannabis as medicine, social justice, and the last thing I will say, they're talking about it like, how do we increase the GDP utilizing this plant? That's where my business background comes into play, because what I don't want for Africa is for raw resources to be pulled out. The best place to grow weed is in a place like Africa or across the Caribbean, right? We don't want it to be raw plant grown and then brands happen elsewhere, which is what is the case for a lot of the raw materials that Africa has had for centuries. This is a new day. And so we have an ability to build the whole supply chain for African countries. And that also includes educating them and their institutions. And so, yeah, I'm thrilled to finally participate in that.
And just so people know, when I lived in Los Angeles, Dasheeda came out to LA a couple times, and I would take pictures of her talking in these conferences, and the different marijuana, her colleagues in Los Angeles, and she would just do her thing, just light up the room. And she is a strong woman, and she does it,
Well, speaking of that, now I've heard you and seen you on news programs up in New York City, talking. The mayor would be there and his staff, and I listened to him. I listened to you, and I said, "Do you have any political aspirations going forward?"
Absolutely not. Why? Because I get to say what I want. Hashtag I say what I want. And hashtag I still think fuck this job. At the end of the day, I'm doing this I'm on a mission. I'm here serving time, and I'm doing it strategically because I feel like this is a real precipice for the industry, and government has been dropping the ball in other markets. And so I work for government because I don't trust government. Real talk. I don't trust the allocations. I don't trust the politicians, and I don't want to become one. I have been asked about it. I do think we have a new age ahead of us. I'd rather be a strategist than the politician itself, because at the end of the day, even the most radical, I love AOC, for example, they become part of the machine. And the machine right now is not good for Black people, period, neither Democratic or Republican. It's like different wings of the same bird. And what I learned with this whole process is even more so how we use the Democratic Party uses us in a way that keeps the status quo. We still have the same unemployment rate since 1970. How is that possible with all these reform things? At Target, I would have been fired. You got 40 years to fix a problem and you didn't do it. Yeah, so I'm independent, and I think that is a really rough path to try to navigate as a politics person. But I think at this point, I'm happy to be an activist and an advocate and an educator for my communities, an agitator and an organizer. I think that's the best. And now I'm doing it within government. They let me in, so if I blow up a couple of things here or there, that's the goal. But it is not to become, a governor myself. But I am thrilled to support those. Shout out to Governor Westmore, the first governor that is a Black man in Maryland. So I'm happy to be connected and give the guidance, but not necessarily try to do it myself.
Okay.
Okay. Very good. So, even now, marijuana to smoke is legal. I guess to possess it has to be legal, but it's still illegal in some ways too, isn't it?
Yeah. So there's a whole conversation and debate about decriminalization. One of the things that I still struggle with is every state has their own rules about the amount that you can carry. So, for example, in New Jersey, you could have up to 6 ounces of flour on you without an issue. And honestly, most people, it's like don't ask, don't tell. Nobody knows where you got it from, real talk, right? It could come from a dispensary, maybe not. Of course, they want you to buy it from a dispensary. But the fact is, we don't need a legal market to get good weed. People could still grow this. And in Oklahoma, it literally grows out of the sidewalk without issue. So it's not like the government is creating the best weed in the world. What they are creating is a framework for us to take this tax revenue and give it back to our communities. And so that's why I'm willing to support the legal industry. The flip side of it is in New York, you can only carry up to 3 ounces. So imagine me, because y'all know I'm bridge and tunnel. I be in New York and New Jersey. Technically, I live in both states. But yeah, as quickly as I might have 6 ounces, when I come to New York, I got to disappear 3 ounces technically, because I will be over the legal limit. That's what it means by like somewhat illegal still. You know what I mean? That every state, some states is only 1 ounce. A lot of the weights come from ignorance. People hearing us rap about an OZ or whatever and thinking it's a lot of weed. An ounce of weed is actually not a lot of weed. When we think about like the most popular size of sugar is a 5-pound bag of sugar. And sugar is the devil. Literally, it is killing us all. But we can only get an ounce of weed. It doesn't make sense. And so, yeah, there's still a component of this that is illegal. Also, the last thing I'll say is if you want to sell it, you can only sell it through the licensing schemes. Otherwise, technically what you're doing is illegal. And so anybody who's still like, oh, I'm growing my own or I'm getting my own and I'm selling it, if they're not participating and applying for a license and getting approval from the state, they're not legally doing it.
So I can't grow no weed?
Technically, in New Jersey, they did not allow for home grow, whereas in New York, you can. If you were in New York, I would ask you, Pop, to get your medical card, which is actually free in New York and very easy to do. It takes less than 15 minutes. And people over 65 get approved pretty easily because of ailments that cannabis works for. If you're a medical patient in New York, you can grow your own. And then in the next 7 months, they're going to come out with the rules for the adult use grow your own. Unfortunately, New Jersey listened to the big cannabis companies and decided to go against the home grow. This is what I mean by sometimes the politicians don't be doing the right thing. And so now in New Jersey, home grow is not only is it illegal, you could actually get some mandatory minimums based on trying to grow it yourself. It doesn't mean that people ain't still growing it. Yes. These are the things that we were still fighting, is that there's still war on drugs latent in some of the policies for even the legalization. And a large part of that is because Black folks, even the Black politicians, were last to come to the table on things. We were the most fearful, naturally so, right? Like we were the most abused by the policies of the past. So it makes sense that we wouldn't want to come forward to participate.
I know in Los Angeles you can grow.
Yep.
You
can.
In Los Angeles you can grow.
Yep. Cali, you can do home grow. Oregon, you can do home grow. They kind of dictate how many plants you can have in total. In New York, 6 mature, 6 immature. Some of that, again, we're basing it on precedent of other states and not so much the science. A plant can yield 3 to 4 ounces depending on how well of a cultivator you are, which again is not a lot of cannabis. They're acting like you grow your own. Now you're the cartel, and that's BS.
Right.
Now, there's getting high off of weed, but there's other benefits, aren't there?
Absolutely. The cannabis plant is inherently medicinal. By that, I mean that no matter how you take it in, whether you were planning on just having a good night and, hanging out, there are medicinal benefits that you're getting no matter what. Some of the cannabinoid benefits are anti-inflammatory, is actually anti-toxicity, anti-cancer. We are learning more and more. America's behind because of the laws, but Israel, for example, and Germany are just a few countries that are light years ahead on the science of cannabis. And that's the thrilling part to me. It also is upsetting because if you had someone pass away, my mother, for cancer, you wonder, could this have been a different experience for her? Or my cousin had a traumatic brain injury, and even though he was a medical patient in Arizona, they still at the hospital would not give him the cannabis. Did we miss an opportunity to reverse his symptoms? I think so. I think this is a human rights issue, that we're not allowed to use the medicine that actually is better for us than the pharmaceuticals. And a large part of it has to do with the pharmaceutical industry, the threat to them. The top 3 reasons, Pop, that people use cannabis, even in an adult use recreational market, are sleep, pain, and anxiety. Those 3 reasons alone are $500 billion worth of pharmaceutical drugs right now on the market. So that's why cannabis has been illegal or continued to be, because if you could smoke a plant and take care of all those things, why would you need a prescription? And what we're seeing in the legal markets, especially for seniors, that they can reduce their prescriptions by more than half, more than 70%. In Arizona, that was the biggest learning I found. You taking 10 pills, I can get you down to 2 or 3 if we get you on a cannabinoid regimen. And that's scary for pharmaceutical industry.
Now let me ask you this: Are there doctors now who prescribe and treat with cannabis?
Absolutely. Not prescribed technically, because it's still a
Right.
Schedule 1, but every state that has a medical program, they are usually, it's doctors, and in some states it's nurse practitioners. If you have a DEA Schedule 2 license, then you usually are able to what they call recommend. In some states, they're doing self-certification, because if I could decide to take an ibuprofen on my own over the counter, which I did trade in Advil for cannabis, then I could decide whether or not I'm gonna smoke a joint, or if I'm gonna take a gummy. I think where we've lost our way in the health professional industry is most doctors don't know you have an endocannabinoid system. They don't even know the system. We didn't learn it in medical school. Like when I was there, we weren't learning that. And so if they don't even know you have it, how do they help you with it? As a patient, I would say I'm educating physicians more often than not, but luckily we're getting more and more. So I'm going to tell you about an organization called the Association for Cannabis Health Equity in Medicine, or ACHEM. And this is a BIPOC health professionals association. These are Black and brown doctors, health professionals, pharmacists, pharmacologists, PhDs, even yoga specialists, chiropractors. They all are learning about the endocannabinoid system and being able to provide that service. And we found that people of color do much better when we are serviced by other people of color in the health professions. Our outcomes
Well, yeah. Well, that's in any part of the health system. We'll always serve better by our own.
Yep.
But you were saying that Israel and Germany are more open with their cannabis.
They are, in that they've been studying it longer. So their medical understanding of the medical cannabis is a lot further. So Israel, Germany, Australia, and Canada, I feel like are like top 4. I'd add Spain for top 5 for the amount of research they've done so far.
But the best cannabis is grown in the South, right? Like in the Caribbean and Africa and South America, South Asia.
Absolutely, it is. And I think what's interesting is that I've been to Jamaica and been to Trinidad, and to hear the leaders, like prime minister level, talk about the white men coming from California to teach them how to grow is like crazy. To me, that's like Koreans selling Black people fried chicken in the hood. It makes no sense. I'm gonna be 100. It makes me irate, actually, that we don't understand just how much power we have in the genetics and what we already know how to do. And so I've just been really trying to empower people of color on what we have as multicultural history. More than 2,000 years ago, this was known as medicine. And before 1930s, this was part of our pharmacopoeia in America as well. And all that has been stripped from us. And I'm upset about it, and we should all be. But especially in the islands and in South America and in Africa, we we have land race, what they call land race genetics, meaning it's only been grown there, that is superior than so many other places in the world. We just have to tap into our history and our ancestors, connection with the plant.
Okay. Well, daughter, this has been wonderful. This has been wonderful, very enlightening too. I listened to you. Do you still have your podcast?
We are on a little hiatus because the lead host had to make a whole
Okay.
human. But now that Ice is delivered KJ, I think we're gearing up for remainder of our season. But we already have 100 episodes. So if you want to learn about the industry, She Blazed on Apple Podcast or Spotify, really anywhere, Audible, anywhere you can listen to podcasts is a good option.
She Blaze, right?
She Blazed.
Have you heard?
I love that. I love that.
Have you heard of the Boozer Bud podcast?
The what? Say that again.
Have you heard of the Boozer Bud podcast out of Trenton? The Boozer Bud podcast out of Trenton.
Yes, I have.
We had Ike and his daughter Ikea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
We had them on as guests, months ago.
Yeah.
They're another cannabis podcast.
Okay.
Okay.
That's good. Well, my sister, my daughter, it's good to see you, sweetheart. It's very good to see you
as well. I hope to see you in person. I'm glad that y'all are doing this. I'm thrilled at the progress for sure. And when I do tune in, it's always a good time. So, yes. Thank you for having me. Finally.
Thank you for stopping by and speaking with me. I'm sorry that my lights and cameras and everything went off, and I had to use his phone out here on the porch where it's very noisy. But hey, the show goes on, right?
It does, and it was a good show. No, hey. Michael knew what he was doing.
Very good, very good. Okay, sister, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Give my love to Isis. And what's the little baby's name?
His name is King Justice George Dawson.
Wait a minute, hold on. Oh, King Justice
George Dawson. Mm-hmm.
George
Dawson.
King Justice. Hot damn, KJ. That's my sister's initials.
Mm-hmm.
All right, KJ. Very good. All right, take care of yourself. I love you.
Love you all.
All right, bye-bye.
Love you too.
All righty. That was outstanding. Whoa! It got to be a bit of a challenge here, son. My Lord, it's getting dark now. So I'm losing
we had
light.
some technical difficulties, but we got through it, and that's
it's weird that. Oh wait a minute, maybe the lights are back on now. I think they are because I'm seeing street lights, and I see lights over across the street, so they must be back on. All right, but I'm sitting outside on the porch, so I don't really know. Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Yeah, it was choppy, but
Yeah, I guess so. Like yours is choppy right now. Hey.
Yeah, I'm out right now.
I smell some weed now. Come to think of it, wonder where that's coming from. Hey, it smell like skunk weed nowadays. No.
Yeah.
Anyway, who we got next week? Anybody?
Right now, we don't have a guest, but we're working on it.
We're working on a guest for next week, huh?
Yes. Okay. In 2 weeks, I believe we have Al put somebody on, but we're looking for a guest next week.
Okay. Well, we'll find somebody. Whoever it is, it's gonna be a hot one.
Yes,
and Dasheeda was just on there, and she, that little girl can talk her butt off. Hot damn. I was asking her about being a politician. I said, as well as she talks, she get into a debate with somebody. I wouldn't want to be that somebody.
Nobody want that smoke. Nobody want that smoke.
No, you don't want that. All right, son. You take good care of yourself. I'll see you next week. Next Thursday at 8 o'clock.
All right, Pop. See you tomorrow.
I want to thank everybody. Please, thank you for putting up with this power failure and having to work around that. But we do what we got to do. See, so we're looking at Dana K. Harmon. Great show. Love you, family. Here. Well, she'll be here on Sunday, so maybe we can get her to do a show.
Huh?
Because she talks about mental health. She's a mental health specialist. You know, that's her specialty. She's a social worker and a counselor in that. I know she's gonna be here. We got her. Don't worry about it. Okay. I'll see you. Love everybody. Thank you everybody who listened to this broadcast. Thank you everybody who's part of this broadcast. See you next week, 8 o'clock Thursday. Good night.
Take it easy, everybody.